Welcome to the Uila SaaS installation video. In this video, we will deploy the Uila information controller within your data center and point to the Uila management and analytics server in our data center. First things first, however, let's look at the various components that make up the Uila solution. First thing I want you to notice is what we call the Virtual Information Controller, or VIC. The VIC is used to communicate with vCenter via APIs to gather data regarding your virtual infrastructure and virtual machines. This will provide us with statistics for CPU, memory, and storage, along with the topology of your infrastructure. To the left of that, we have our Virtual Smart Taps, or VSTs. A VST is a small VM that resides within the infrastructure and sits on a specific vSwitch where your VMs live. This smart tap will be used to gather metadata about network and application performance. These smart taps will provide the data to the VIC to be combined with vCenter data and sent to the Uila Management and Analytics Server, or UMAS. The UMAS in this case is a virtual machine within our SaaS infrastructure and contains a Hadoop database to hold all of our metadata data points, as well as the analytic engine, and provides a web interface to our dashboards and monitors. Now that we know the various components, let's begin the process of deploying the VIC first, followed by the smart taps. In order to deploy the VIC, you will first need to download the OVA file. In order to get the OVA file, please use your browser to get to portal.uila.com and use the credentials you chose when registering for your free trial. The first step shows you a button to download the VIC OVA. When that is finished downloading, open your vCenter or web client and we will begin the deployment. Most likely you're already familiar with the process of deploying OVA/OVF files, so the first part will move fairly quickly. We are simply selecting the OVA to deploy, choosing where to deploy it, including the cluster and host. You will also see one page that explains the various configuration options we have available. Please note that the amount of resources assigned to the VIC is dependent on the number of VMs within the infrastructure. Once you select the data store to deploy into and select thin provisioning, unless you have a policy to thick provision new VMs, you'll finally see that we need to point the VIC to the Management and Analytics Server, and since we're deploying this with the SaaS option, we can leave this pointed to portal.uila.com, which is set by default. You will then enter the IP address and administrative credentials for vCenter and network settings for this VM with things like subnet, gateway, DNS, and using a static IP. Please note that administrative credentials are required for vCenter due to the fact that later we will be utilizing our auto deployment feature to set up our VSTs. Once that is complete, we can go back to our web browser, preferably Firefox, Chrome, or Safari, and you should see a button at the bottom in step 3 that tells us we can proceed to the dashboard. If you had closed your browser after downloading the OVA, point back to portal.uila.com. Once you're in the interface, you should click on the Real-Time switch at the top of the screen, and then you should see a few notes in the system log. The important ones we're looking for are that the VIM, or VIC, has started, and it shows the name of your data center, the logical data center under vCenter. Now, within a few minutes, you should start to see some colors appear on the screen for CPU, memory, and storage. Again, those are gathered via the API from vCenter. When you do, you can go to the Settings tab on the left toolbar and we can deploy our VSTs. To begin, expand the host where you would like to deploy a smart tap. Click on the vSwitch checkbox of a vSwitch that your VMs live on. Note that we do not need to do this for things like iSCSI or vMotion vSwitches. And click the Configure button. Here you can choose your data store, network that has access to the VIC, and choose either DHCP or static IP for this VM. Lastly, you will click on the Please Select drop-down and choose Install. Once it begins, I like to go to vCenter, and we can see a new port group get created for ourselves. If we go to the Networking tab for that host, you can see the new port group within that vSwitch, as well as the new VM being created. Going back to our web UI, you will see the Smart Tap will now show as active, and a few minutes later you will begin to see colors appear for both network health and application performance on your dashboard. For more information on how to use the solution, check out our How to Use Uila video. The link is provided below. Thanks for watching.